Alright guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Hyperactive Vibes. This is part 2 of a 4-part series and giving you all some tips and tricks in living and traveling abroad. Like I said in part 1, I put a poll up on my Instagram asking you all, would you rather get some tips and tricks on living and traveling abroad or some tips and tricks on living and traveling during a pandemic? And you all decided living and traveling abroad. In the first part, I gave you all some tips and tricks on what to do before you actually arrive to the country. And those tips were a little general, just for anybody either living or traveling or going to school abroad. And now I'll be giving some specific tips for those of you who will be living abroad on what you should do before you actually move to that country. So let's hop in. It has been way too long. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Hyperactive Vibes. Hyperactive Vibes. Number 1 is to think of this opportunity as a fresh start. This is your opportunity to kind of rebrand yourself and get to redecide who you want to be in life and who you want to be perceived as, who you want to show up as, and who you really are, and how you're going to kind of make your impact, make your statement for yourself and on the community and kind of the world at large. I think that when you are able to move completely from one country to another, it's your opportunity to kind of restart who you want to be as a person. So, for example, when I was in middle school, I can't even lie, guys. I really haven't changed too much from like middle school to high school to now. I'm still kind of like goofy and bubbly and all that. But for some people, I know that they may have been shy or more, reserved before, and moving abroad was their opportunity to kind of make new friends and put themselves in situations that they may have not normally have found themselves in. It's also an opportunity for you to kind of relinquish any type of negative feelings you had or any type of stereotypes you may be put into, if you were bullied, etc. Now you're kind of able to like let that go and move on from that time period of your life. So moving countries can be moving countries can be a really big way to kind of redo or rebrand yourself as a new person and kind of get rid of those past traumas, those past downfalls that you're maybe still recovering from or learning from, but you don't necessarily want to repeat. It's also a good way for you to move on from other people and kind of let old friends be old friends. And it's kind of the definition of people are in your life for a season. So when you move to a completely different country, you're able to decide if you want to keep certain people in your life for the next season. So yeah, number 1 is it's a fresh start. You get to rebrand yourself. Okay, so tip number 2 before you actually move to this country is to do your research on the governing religion. So whatever the dominant religion is of that country, of the area that you're moving into, of the community you're going to be a part of, it is important that you kind of learn how intense the regulations or how intense the policies are going to be around the nature of the country. So for example, when I moved to the Middle East, there was regulations on what you could wear in different parts of the country. So in some areas you could not wear, a crop top and some booty shorts and walk around like that's okay. That was more for your touristy areas, like on the beaches of Dubai or in the clubs of Dubai. But necessarily in our lane, you're not going to really see too many people walking around in like crop tops and booty shorts or whatever, because that's not the norm. But in some specific areas, there were actually laws and regulations against what you could wear in certain parts of the country. So if you were caught wearing your booty shorts and your crop tops, then there could be some type of repercussion that you'll have to go through. And that type of law is based off of the governing religion of the country, which is Islam. So it's really important that you kind of do your background research and you kind of figure out what you can and cannot do while in that country. So another law that was there was the intake or the sale or distribution of alcohol, and I believe that was only done in the hotels, and that was like literally the only place that you could ever get alcohol in the entire country. And so that's just something else that is really important for you to consider when you're moving into a new country, a new city, a new community. If you're going to be staying there for anywhere longer than a year, then it's really important that you kind of do your research, because at that point you're no longer considered a tourist. Now you're actually an expat, and now you actually are a part of that community. And so it's important that you kind of abide by the rules and regulations that are, you know, mandatory that you abide by. Another benefit in looking up the governing religion of a country is that you're able to figure out if they're going to have what you need. So if you are Hindu, or if you are Christian, or if you are Jewish and you're moving to a country where the governing religion is not that, then you want to make sure that there's still going to be a space for you to go and do your types of prayers or worship that you need to do as a believer in your religion. So it's important that you kind of figure out where you're going to be able to get the same type of community in that regard, and if they're going to have the mosque or the churches or the temples that you are accustomed to having or that you expect to have. So yeah, it's really important that you do your research to figure out if that country will actually meet those needs. So that is tip number 2, do your research on the religion of that country. That was a mouthful. Okay, so number 2 would be to find a group or a community, and you can kind of do that. I would recommend that you do that beforehand. That's kind of what my parents did. That's what a lot of expats, especially Black Americans that were moving to the Middle East, did, was they found communities through Facebook or Instagram, typically Facebook. I don't know why, it's an old people site, so you know, you can find all those things. So they typically use Facebook or GroupMe or WhatsApp to find different groups of people that were already in the country that they could kind of, you know, join and have like a buddy in a sense, or a community in a sense, that reminded them of home while they were in this foreign country. And in doing so, that helped me as a kid growing up in this country to kind of have a community that was very supportive and could kind of bring in a sense of home to a foreign land. So I would definitely recommend that if you're moving to a country to live there, that you kind of find a community and kind of do your research to figure out where are your people kind of at to a certain degree. So for example, if you are part of the LGBTQ community and you're moving to Japan, then maybe you want to figure out like, hey, where do the LGBTQ community members typically kind of congregate, you know, so you can have that sense of community if you're looking for that while you're in that country. So yeah, that's very important that you kind of find your group, find your community, maybe before you get there, to avoid feeling lost and confused and like you're all alone in this big country. So that could definitely help. That's a little tip and trick, I guess. So let's move on. So the next tip that I have, if you are moving, this is a trick. I guess this is more of a trick. The next trick that I have, if you're gonna be moving to a different country, and this kind of applies to people who are like still in school, is to join the actual school system that's there. So it's a completely different experience, you being in homeschool or you being in online school in a foreign country versus actually being in the local school that's there, and you get a completely different outlook on the people, on the community, on the lifestyle, on the cultural values, on the norms of the society of the people who are there. You get to further your knowledge of the community in a deeper sense, because now you're actually interacting in a day-to-day basis with people who are not a part of the community that you just left, or they're not the people who are in your household, so to speak. So yeah, being able to fully immerse yourself into the community is definitely achievable and made easier, and I think it also makes your transition into the country a lot easier if you go to school in that country, and if you're able to actually like make friends and kind of vibe with the community that's already there and already established, and kind of figure out, well, you know, what are they doing? What am I doing? What can I learn? What can I adapt to? What can I kind of add into myself, or what can I show them about me? Like, it's definitely a learning opportunity on both sides, because not only are you able to learn from them, but they're able to learn from you. Specifically in my case, me and my brother were the only Americans at our school, so it was definitely a huge learning opportunity for all of us, and I walked away having a lot more knowledge of just the norms of the society and the people, and just how friendly and cool the actual country was, I guess. I know that's not really the best description, but I don't want to give too much information because I do want to make a whole nother video on this and like what that exact experience was like, but just know it was very helpful. So now this last little point, tip or trick, whatever you want to classify it as, is not, I guess, a stereotypical one, but it is to figure out the healthcare system, because at some point you might get sick, you might get injured, and you'll be looking for some type of aid outside of your first aid kit that you keep at home. So it's important that you kind of learn the healthcare system that's there and figure out, is it free healthcare for all, or is it private healthcare? Is it through your sponsor who brought you to the country? Is it through your school? Is it something that you needed to establish before you even got there? So trying to figure out and navigate the healthcare system of a new country is very important, especially if you're going to be living there, because there's no telling, you may get a knee injury or get sick or something and have to go to the hospital and figure out that you're missing a bunch of different documents, or figure out that you have to pay a large copay, or there is no such thing as a copay and everything's out of pocket. So there really is no telling like what you're going to walk into until you do your research about it. So better safe than sorry. Make sure you look up the healthcare system that is in your country, especially if you're going to be living there. Okay, so that wraps up all of my tips. The first one was to take this opportunity as a fresh start and maybe think about rebranding yourself and letting go of the past. The next tip was to do your research on the religion and kind of learn what the norms there, and if the dominant religion there is going to kind of meet your needs, or if they're going to have outside resources for you. Point number 3 was to find a group, a community, use those Facebook pages and put yourself out there and find a little buddy. You know, it makes the transition a lot smoother. The 4th point was to join a school. If that's something that you're able to do, then definitely do so, okay? And the last point was to make sure that you get your healthcare in order, because you have no idea what you're walking into, and it's better safe than sorry, especially if you find yourself in a very sticky situation. So those are my 5 points. Thank you all for tuning in into part 2 of this series, giving you all some tips and tricks on how to navigate living and traveling abroad. All right, guys, stay tuned for part 3 next Monday. See you guys later, and don't forget to like down below, subscribe down below, and leave a comment of some tips that you may have if you have actually moved to a different country to live there. So see you all in the next one. Bye bye.